Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the House District 80 Candidate Forum. My name is Charlie Comfort. This forum is hosted by the New Sharon Sun and Oskaloosa News. We would like to thank the candidates for their participation this evening, and of course, we want to thank Penn Central Mall for allowing us to have 3 forums here this week. Joining us this evening are our 2 candidates for House District 80. They include Republican candidate Holly Brink and Democrat candidate Susan McDaniel. We have developed a list of candidates this evening that have not been shared with the candidates, and we will be taking questions from the audience, the standing room only audience. And if you do have any questions, just go ahead and get a hold of Ken or myself, and we will hold the microphone and give you your opportunity to ask the question. We don't have an overall time limit set for this evening. We're going to ask questions until we think the people's curiosity has been satisfied. Again, my name is Charlie Comfort. I am the regional editor for the Sigourney News Review and the New Sharon Sun. And joining me this evening also is Ken Alsop, owner and journalist with Oskaloosa News. We both will be moderating tonight's forum. Tonight, if we feel as though a candidate is not answering the question that we have asked, we will reserve the right to refocus the discussion, and candidates, you may be asked to clarify and further define your statements. And we're going to go ahead and start with opening statements. We'll start with Holly Brink.
Hi, I'm Holly Brink. I'm running course for House District 80, which is East Mahaska County, West Wapello, Olive Monroe, and Olive Avenues. Born and raised on a family farm. Married my husband. We farm just outside of Oskaloosa here. We have 3 children, Garrison, Balin, and Harbor. I'm a district sales coordinator for Aflac. I hire and train in Southern Iowa and work with businesses to help provide solutions for insurance and other solutions that they need, such as employment, hiring, entertaining, and morale of a company. I've been with that for over 10 years. My husband works at Crop Production Services for 13 years, and now he's at Farm Credit Service of America as a financial officer. And I am just running because I believe it's important for the next generation. I feel that many of us here in Southern Iowa, we chose to live here, and I just pray that the next generation has something to stay here. If they choose to leave, we should cheer them on. However, we can't sit back and say later in life, I'm sorry you have to leave because there's nothing here for you. So I feel that is a very big part of it. I also feel that some situations in education we can make a difference in, such as our early childhood education, we can use that better to actually spend the money wiser, to have better results. Economical growth throughout our whole district is excruciatingly and very important to me. I've worked with businesses for so long in this area and have been talking with them. There's a lot of things that they need, and we need to make sure that we come through for them on that. And of course, agriculture, which is the backbone of District 80. So I appreciate your support, and thanks for coming.
Well, good evening. My name is Susan McDaniel, and I live on a farm between Moravia and Centerville in Appaloosa County. I grew up on Heritage Farm, and probably most of you have never seen me before or heard from me ever before, so I want to give you just a little background. On that Heritage Farm, my parents were dairy farmers, and when I got married to my husband Jody out there, we were also dairy farmers for 25 years. And during that time, we raised 2 daughters, and I was also a high school government and history teacher for 38 years, and then I retired. But I retired not just because I was tired of it. I retired because I always knew that if I ever had a student come in and say that their grandparent had me as a teacher, I would quit. And I had a young man stroll in one day, and he said, you know what? My grandma had you as a teacher. And I said, in my mind, I thought, it is time to quit. So I did. That was my year. So I had started teaching when I was 22. And through that career that I had as a history and government teacher for 10th and 12th graders, I got to travel, I got to win awards, I got to be concerned with our community and our state. The stronger our communities are, the stronger our state is. And so as I was watching what was going on in the state legislature, I had some concerns about what was happening, especially with monetary issues, the budget, and how much money seemed to be not being spent correctly. I was concerned there. As a public educator, I was very concerned about the issues and the demands that are being made on teachers. And then the third, and something I hear absolutely every single day, is about mental health and privatized Medicaid. Those are issues I hear constantly. And so because of all of that, all of those reasons are the reasons why I think I can be an excellent legislator, and I hope that you'll vote for me in November. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We'll go ahead and start with our first question here. As recently as 2017, the Iowa legislature has considered bills to consolidate Iowa counties, citing possible cost savings of service. Do you believe that this is an idea worth considering in the legislature? We'll start with Susan.
I am not ready.
Hello, there we go. I am not for the consolidation of the counties. One of the things, if you want to, have you ever seen a small town lose their school? What happens to that town? It pretty well disappears. If you pay attention and go to Albia, go to Centerville, come to Mahaska, to Oskaloosa itself, and see how many people go in and out of that courthouse and how much business it brings into the community, we can find efficiency some other way than just closing down courthouses. And the other thing is, we do have an elderly population. For my mother and father, who were older, they wouldn't have been able to travel all the way to Ottumwa, which you would assume would be an area that they would have consolidation at. Many people cannot travel. And we've seen that with, as Hello? Yeah. As DHS has moved away from our community, we have all kinds of reports about child abuse and that kind of incidents that happen, but it all has to be taken care of in Ottumwa. And guess what? People are not reporting those things because it's too far away. It's just somewhere in the distance because not everyone travels probably as much as everyone does in this room.
Okay. You know, I think this is a real concern. As we know, county seats was developed way back with the horse and buggy. It was made so you can get to the county, the courthouse and back within one day. I think that's a very important, part to remember. And it is a big deal because many communities, if they would lose their county seat, it would change the dynamic of their whole entire town. So we do need to look for solutions because the budget is an issue. Does it necessarily have to be closing the courthouses in areas? I don't think that's a solution, but we do need to find ways to make it economically okay to continue to have them open. A lot of people are doing stuff online they've never had before as well. So I'm not necessarily in favor of shutting down courthouses and consolidating, but I do think we do need to make sure we continue looking at the budget to find the solutions in other ways. Because I do feel that it could be very, very crucial to the economics of the community if we did do so.
Alrighty, I have a question for you. So in 2017, Iowa legislature did the privatization of Medicaid in Iowa. Do you support that effort? And why or why not do you support your opinion?
I think the idea that you would privatize Medicaid was a thought that they've seen in other states. But when they did it in other states, the main thing that they did is they took about 10 years to implement it. And in our state, we rapidly implemented it in about a year and a half, maybe another month in there. The problem has been is that in the managed care facilities, in the MGOs, they are trying to save money because they're trying to save money in a different way than I could possibly think, but they are denying payment to many, many individuals. And as they deny these payments, nursing homes aren't being paid. Hospitals aren't being paid. Then we have individuals that have, you maybe know about home health care aides, and that might go into a home for maybe, 6 hours a week to help people with bathing, doing laundry, helping do a little housekeeping, and those individuals aren't being paid. There have been multiple groups of people and companies that are going out of business. I don't know what's going to happen when we have a business like a nursing home closed down because the payments are so far behind. We also saw that just recently they gave a 7.5% administrative pay increase to the MTOs. And what that does is that with all administrative costs, now, they're not supposed to, the state used to have their administrative cost set at 4%. Now, you have a 7.5% increase. The maximum it can be is 15. I'm not sure exactly where that number is at the moment, but that's not efficiency. That is hurting individuals in Iowa. Are there alternatives? Yes. Does it need to be fixed? Yes. Can we go back to the way it was and the state run it? Probably not. But it's going to have some looking at, some examination. There are several ideas out there, and I hope we look at those ideas so that we are not hurting our most vulnerable people.
With the privatization of Medicaid, I think there's a lot of different issues that we need to look at. One is our Health and Human Services budget in the state of Iowa. 20 years ago was 6% of our total state budget. Right now, it's at almost 24%. Why is that? One of the issues is when the ACA came out, it made a standard federal deduction or amount. A family of 4 making $94,000 a year qualifies for a subsidy. And if you go on the healthcare.gov, you put in your amounts of income, it actually automatically, if you were low enough, would ship you to that department of the Health and Human Services. They would get your information. From there, they would then start calling you to tell you to apply for state aid. Many people didn't even have an option. So we also need to look at the growth of the amount of people that have used that department or used that money from here on out. When you have a surplus of new users, it also can slow down the processing fee, processing time, as in any business if you had a surplus. I think we need to look at that and take that into consideration because they are slower than they used to be. It's because they have more claims as well, and we need to work on that. It definitely is not perfect, but we also need to look at these PBMs that are paying and pushing money each way. If you look down at Wapello County, the jail, they just changed and took the PBMs out, which are the people that basically transfer the money from pharmacies to insurance companies and put it in the middle, and they took that person out. They saved just that one little area $274,000. So if that one area can save that, think of what it would take if we did it throughout the whole entire state. I think it's a very crucial thing we need to look at. Is it working perfect? Absolutely not. It's not. But we do have to consideration the influx of how many people are now using it. We need to look at the fact that we went from 6% to 24% of our state budget. And why? And we need to look at this PBM thing. And I think that will help start it down a better path than it currently is.
Are the number of people that are using it increasing? No. Is the money being saved? No. Those are the issues. And are we hurting people? It might have gone up to 24% of our budget, but that also can be tweaked and be manipulated, and we need to have more efficiency. So it's not, well, we have so much money out there, we're spending so much money on it, we got to reduce it. We can reduce it wisely. We can reduce it without hurting people, and we can reduce it without paying out-of-state companies to run that system.
Well, and when she says, you're right, that's part of some of that has to do with, it is a concern that we are shipping money out of state. We do need to look at that differently. Every dollar you spend in your own community or your own state produces the $1.7. That is a very important part. But there is more people using it. The other effect, like she said earlier, how we talked about nursing home, people on Medicaid, a nursing home is approximately $17,000 a year for every single person that's on it. What's also happening then is people who have done the right thing, they've budgeted, they've saved money, it's about $6,000 a person. And part of that is they're having to also cover that cost for the other individuals to help cover that and offset, which is also causing and creating issues because the individuals then are running out of money sooner and are having to use state funding even sooner, which is increasing the amount of people that are on these plans as well. So I think we need to look at it as a total from start to finish and where it's coming into effect. Again, it is not the perfect solution. It is not exactly working. But there are some really good things we can fix on the PBM side of the paper pusher in the middle and removing them. It has been proven not 30 miles from here. And then we obviously can't fix the ACA $94,000 issue because it's a federal issue, but we sure can encourage them to look at it more on a per capita basis and a financial situation for each area. So.
In 2017, the Iowa legislature approved a bill, some have called it the union busing bill, others will call it Chapter 20 reform. Essentially, it changed what can be bargained for in collective bargaining, among other things. If you are elected, number one, I want to know, do you support the changes made in that bill? And number two, if you are elected, would you repeal any of those changes? And we'll start with Holly on this one.
I am a support of it. I have 2 teachers in my family. Both my sister-in-law are in education, not even but 30 minutes from here. I feel it gave each local school more control. The teachers at that school can have more control. I've sat and talked to them and a few other teachers. It really didn't necessarily change that much. Many administrators prepared and planned ahead, and got things in line so they would have more time to consider for the future. When they heard it was coming out, they were doing the next year's contracts in February. But they both have said to me, it really hasn't changed anything. We still go to work every day, we still do this, and they don't. They don't really feel it's affected them that much. And so I do go from them. I've talked to a few other teachers that there was some scare at the beginning, but a lot of it has settled down. And most people I've talked to that will sit down and have a really calm conversation with me have said that to me, that it gives it to our local schools. Because I do feel that it's we the people. Everybody up in Des Moines or lives in Des Moines, they don't have the same concerns and things that we work through here, even with our own teachers. And so it helps make the decisions on a local level and allows our school board and our principals and our teachers to make those decisions for our community.
I was a public school educator for 38 years, and yes, I was involved in the collective bargaining unit. And when what it was designed to do, collective bargaining, was, I thought, always an excellent thing. It had been in there since 1968. No complaints hardly, except some people said that you can't fire bad teachers. Well, you couldn't fire bad teachers if the administration did their job. And if the administrator didn't do the job and said that this person is a perfect teacher for 20 years and then the next day say they're a bad teacher, they need to get rid of that person, it's really hard to look at your evaluation and then can somebody. Has it made a difference? Yeah. We got contracts. Got contracts that tell you exactly every little detail. Contracts are a good thing. They tell you what your expectations are. And while it hasn't made a difference in some schools yet, every year you have to recertify. Every teacher has to vote yes or no on whether they even want the association to represent them. And if that teacher doesn't vote, that's a no vote. It is designed to get rid of teacher associations. There is no doubt in my mind. Now, they might thought it was going to make any difference, but that's pretty much where it is. Has it made a difference yet? Maybe not for Holly's sister-in-laws. But will it make a difference, and has it started to make a difference? Yes, because administrators, school boards, some are fantastic. Some of them are looking out for all, but there are some that are vindictive, and they will go after people, and they can fire someone basically without any rights of any kind. I would like to see collective bargaining back into our past. it might have to be, again, I don't think you can ever go back to like it used to be. You have to make some variances of it, but I would like to see it come back.
Alrighty. So, campaign ethics, as we'll let the clerk, we'll let these folks get on out of earshot a little bit. But campaign ethics is always part of the discussion whenever, we get to election time. And do you see that the Iowa Ethics is doing their job? Do you feel as though that there's anything that can be done to help strengthen or encourage people's belief that their elections are honest, and that the money that is being spent for candidates is being utilized correctly? And so let's just start there. So do you think that we really need to maybe look at Iowa Ethics and how they're handling their job working with folks like you? Susan, you can start.
Now, I haven't had a great deal of experience with the campaign and ethics area, but I know that I have been a treasurer at different times and have sent in all that information. And I suppose there are always people that are going to try and cheat, which is unfortunately. But I think it's pretty difficult when you have to write, I don't know if any of you have gone onto the website and looked at it, but you have to exactly put down how much money is spent, where it's spent, who's given you money, if you've taken out a loan to yourself, if you've given any in-kind giving. I really still think that for the majority, 99.99% of the thing, I think that our ethics council is good. I think it's doing its job. I have not read anything that says that they haven't been. They have to make some tough calls sometimes on what it, they have to make the tough calls on, is this even filed at the right time? There's little things that they have to do. And so I think that the ethics campaign and ethics board, I think they're doing their job.
I might add to that for a little bit so I've seen in campaigns where candidates such as yourself, not you personally, but other candidates in similar positions have large amount of expenditure for gas cards for volunteers. There's a lot of gray areas that some candidates will exploit. So do you think that there should be a little more teeth to Iowa ethics to be able to control some of that?
Yes, I would not agree that you could hire a babysitter. I think that was one of the issues. I don't think you can hire a babysitter. I don't think you can give out gas cards. I don't think you can give gifts. I think you have to just maintain money in, money out, and for definite reasons.
I think for the most part, again, there's not a ton of issues that do come up with this, but there definitely are some concerns. One is gas cards, one is pizza parties, golf carts, computers. There's been some interesting conversations that have went around with that. I know some candidates have been turned in for purchasing interesting items, we'll say, and they have been investigated. Normally, if you have any questions, you call. You can ask your questions, and I'll tell you, yes, you can purchase that, no, you can't. With the babysitting thing, I think originally for about 2 days, they thought that it was going to be okay, and then they turned and said no, which I agree with, because you really can't, your job doesn't pay for you to babysit your kids. It's probably not a good idea. But I do think there are some of those interesting questions, and maybe some more things that could be stipulated out. Do I think we need to regulate everything under the sun? No. Because we do have, anything over $25 has to be logged in. All the receipts, all that type of stuff we can be, checked on. But I guess if you're talking about, I know some of the stuff you're talking about there, maybe it is, this is who was there type of approach when you do log that amount. I guess I would not be opposed to having to type in a few names of where it went to, because the same person would show up over and over. That could be interesting. But that's about the only thing really, because they're pretty simple, and I know that when people get turned in, they're supposed to be investigating it, questioning it. Things have been turned around and people have gotten in trouble. So I think when you are in the right way, you just need to consider looking at a few slight tweaks of naming individuals that are there for that type of stuff. Yeah.
Do we have anybody who would like to ask a question?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Benson from Oskaloosa. I have a question for Holly. Since you're against changing the bargaining law that took away our rights, I want to know, since that law was kind of hashed out in the 70s, and the agreement was that state employees could bargain for non-wage items in exchange for not striking. So since the Republicans have taken away our right to bargain for non-wage, are you in favor of giving us back the right to strike? That's A. B is, they no longer let us take our dues out of our checks. So how is that different from them taking money out for United Way?
I did not know that you couldn't take your dues anymore. That's a new part. I must have missed that. Okay. Gotcha. Was that taken out pre-tax before or anything, or is it just taken out like a normal deduction? Okay. I was not necessarily aware of that. I would not be, I guess I wouldn't want to give someone the right to strike, because I do feel that you as a school can still work together and, you know, collaborate. It's just not all across the state. You don't.
We held a bargain, we didn't strike, and in exchange we got the right to bargain for non-wage issues. Now we can bargain for non-wage issues, we also cannot strike.
I still would not necessarily, I would not be in favor of striking still. I think that's, and we can agree to disagree on that. I wasn't at every single, you know, event that they had the conversation with, but I still am not in favor of teachers striking. I'm not in favor of anyone striking. And I understand that, but there's also some things that were locked in there that were great use of taxpayer money as well. And we have to look at that as an entire thing and part of the budget and part of the future.
The collective bargaining, one of the best things that I ever remember about going into collective bargaining was being able to talk about the different things besides wages. Because where you are working, what are the requirements, everything from what time you show up in the morning to the time that you get off at night, that was all part of the contract. It told about your insurance, it told about all kinds of different issues, and every school was a little different. And that was the agreement, because Keokuk back in the, early 70s, went on strike because they felt that they were not being treated fairly. The agreement then is that they passed this collective bargaining agreement so that you can talk about other things in the contract besides wages with the promise that you'll never strike. And so they said, that sounds like a good deal. We're not going to strike, but we get to at least talk about all these other issues. And that's, I think, some of the best times that I ever had was talking with administration and school board members and talking about all these different issues, everything from classroom size to illness days. Those were all part of that, and I think it's a really sad thing that those are all gone.
Was there another question here?
Keeping with the collective bargaining, I would like to also ask, we're talking about teachers a lot, and teachers are extremely important, especially in the collective bargaining area. We also have firefighters and police officers. And I read in the register, and I can't remember who said it, so you don't have to quote me on it. We didn't vote Republican to get stabbed in the back. That's how the firefighters and policemen felt about what happened in the legislature. When they passed this, there were firefighters and police officers in the chamber telling them, don't do it. They did it anyway. So if you think that this is a good idea to stick with this, Ms. Brink, I think you should think more about it than just, we need to keep it, we're not going to change it. Those fellas save our lives, and they need to be treated with respect also. Thank you.
We have no one here? All right.
After seeing what happened with collective bargaining, that there was a radical change made with nobody ran on the issue of gutting collective bargaining. It just came out in the middle of the night. Now I'm starting to wonder, the Iowa Public Employees Retirement System, IPERS, are either one of you in favor of privatizing that system? Is this going to be one of these in the middle of the night changes that nobody ran on? I'd like to know, do you plan, if you're elected, to consider privatizing IPERS?
No, and I do not plan on touching IPERS. That has not been a conversation. I have yet to see anyone even put a bill out there that involves IPERS or any part of it. I feel that it is very important that that's what the teachers did. IPERS is very important. There hasn't been any discussion that I have known, and I've been talking with individuals on both parties for quite a while, and it's not necessarily came up except for, questioning from, I've heard her say it 3 times. I've never had a conversation about IPERS, about canceling it. It's never been a part of that. They signed on, it's IPERS, it's their money, and I feel it's extremely important that we don't touch that.
Absolutely.
On IPERS, there have been some proposals, and Holly talked about one last week, about new people coming into the system, so like a new teacher, a new firefighter, a new police officer, having a reduction in the amount of money that would come so that you could use it into some other area.
I said there's never been an amount for people who are currently in the system. Anybody who knew, if something looks like it may be unsolvable or it's not going to work, there may be discussions about a few changes to make sure, but the people that are currently in it, I've never heard anybody wanting to cancel IPERS.
Right.
And I never said taking any money and putting it anywhere else. I never said that.
Okay. But the implication is that the new people would not be having the same qualities of IPERS as the people that are in there now. So I receive IPERS. Don't touch my IPERS. That's a battle cry that a lot of people are going to have. And I think it's a benefit to the people that there are some, when you're a public employee, sometimes you don't make quite as much money in certain areas. I was talking to a water department chief the other day, and he said the main reason that he was staying was that, even though he got more and more and more things on his tablet to do, was because of IPERS. And he said if they would take some away or change that in some way, that he would probably leave and go to the private sector.
I just wanted to clarify, so you're not talking about changing IPERS now or for new hires, correct? Is that correct for both of you? The reason I ask is I understand there is a Senate bill on file that would in fact change IPERS for new hires, and that's why I was asking the question.
Eric, can you tell me what file number that is since you know? I'd really like to know that.
Yeah, off the top of my head, no, but I will get that for you, because I was shocked when I saw a Senate file talking about doing that. But I will get you that.
Whoever had a question, I'll stand over here so you can ask a question. They like me to stand here because it doesn't let the speakers squeal, which we all love so much.
Oh, all right. Because of the historic association in this area of this district with a private school, and the rest of our district has no private schools at all, can you tell us, particularly Holly, if you're going to legislate for the rest of our pupils in the rest of our district, or just for the private school students in Oskaloosa?
Can I ask why you would worry about that? I have kids
And
in public school as
because we
well.
have $56 million of our tax dollars already going to private school students, and there are 30,000 approximately private school students in this state, which is an awful lot of our educational budget is going to private schools. And those of us who live in places that are an hour and a half from any kind of private school have absolutely no choices there, and would like our public schools, which educate almost 500,000 children, to have just as much opportunity. I'm under the impression that the last legislature legislated a lot of money for private students and presented it as an educational budget. It's very deceptive when it's not going to public school students.
Did you say it was $56 million?
Yes, that's what I am told.
Okay, I've never heard that figure. And I have children in public and private education. I am not actually in favor of the voucher program. Even though my children go to a private school, I feel it's a choice I make. I have made that a very clear stance. It has absolutely no, it is a choice I make. I actually don't want government coming in because then you have a smaller and more control of the system. I believe public education is an extremely important thing. I believe children have a choice. I have a choice, and I choose to pay for my little children, my small children at this time. My son that's sitting right back there goes to Oskaloosa Public High School. I believe that both are very important, but I do believe that in private schools, which Oskaloosa, by the way, is not the only area in our district. There's Seton Catholic, that people in Ottumwa, because I grew right up there. There's also Ottumwa Christian School. So that's 3 that I know of. And there's several people out of the Albia, and there's people out of Centerville that drive to Pella Christian. So I don't think it's just one, actually. There's like 4. But I don't believe in the voucher. We butt heart rate right into Ottumwa. The zip code of Ottumwa has people that are in our district. So, but I'm not in favor of like the voucher program or anything like that. I do believe that it's a choice. I'm glad that some of the homeschool programs are working with private or with public schools also to work together. I actually believe in dual enrollment between private and public education. I think it's very important. A public school gets roughly, $6,600 if you dual enroll children from private and public. They get about $4,400 to work together to provide maybe opportunities in classrooms or sports that they don't have at small private schools. I'm a huge supporter of that. I believe we can actually work together to do a lot of things, either whether you're private or public. So, no, I'm not just going to support private education. I think all education is important.
And in this full disclaimer, one of my children went to private school, and I paid every penny of it myself. It would never have occurred to me to ask the taxpayers to pay for my choice.
Yeah.
So, no public money, please.
I'm not in favor of the voucher program.
Now, the voucher program is not all that's out there. There's also a huge tax savings program that you can give money to, I don't know the name of it anymore, but you can give money to all tax deductible and
We'll see. Does Susan have anything you'd like to add to this discussion?
We've stayed on education quite a bit here. The thing has to do with public education educates every single kid. Whether they have a disability, if they have special needs, whether they have behavioral issues, medical issues. And I think you have to really, support our public schools because they're doing a heck of a job and they're doing it without a lot of backing. We have a lot of people that say we're for education, we're for education, we're for education, but then we never see any results of that. It's just the teachers need to do more and more and more and more. So that's, I am not for the voucher system.
Joe Warwick. In the discussion you had on candidates and paperwork, I would like to see you keep this simplified because if you make this too complicated and a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, you're going to drive people away. They're not going to, particularly when they haven't had an opportunity to have been in it, to see all this, they'll think, I don't want any part of that. So I think that you need to be very careful of what you're going to require and how it's going to be done. The other thing is that you talked about counties. You know, about 50 years ago, we had over 2,500 school districts in the state. The state did not do anything to protect those school districts. Now there's just a little over 300 because they had to consolidate. They could not provide enough money to give the services to the people that they needed. Because of that, I think that our counties, the small ones, the people who have less population, and there's some pretty small counties out there, are going to have to figure a way how they are going to combine. And you were referring to distance travel. In this community, the social service office, the social security office has moved to a tunnel. Judicial Aid was going to put an office here. They put it in the tunnel. The unemployment office went to a tunnel. Nobody cared about the people that had to drive to get those services. So evidently, I don't think that's an issue as to the way the state thinks about stuff.
That last thing you said? The very last thing you said?
What was that?
Can you repeat the very last thing you said?
Repeat the last thing you said.
Well, I don't think that having to drive to get services is something that concerns the state. And they did this on DHS several years ago when they closed offices. And those people really needed that local service. And they had to travel further. Some of them had to go 50, 60 miles to get it. Nobody was concerned about that.
I think people were concerned, and I think they expressed their concerns. I know in our community in Appalachia County, in Centerville, there was an outcry. But you're facing some pretty stiff competition from larger cities, from larger counties, and you're I always kind of feel like some people who are working for us are kind of putting their head and hitting the wall. And people aren't listening at the state level, and they should be.
And agree, there's a lot of different, conversations that have been had on this. And we have to consider the budget. I know that there's been a situation coming up with, Centerville had a lot of, their DHS office, all was closed. But I do know there's been some discussion about maybe seeing if there is a office. I know there's one gentleman down there that offered his office 1 to 2 days a week. So maybe it's not possible to go necessarily back to the full open, everyday offices everywhere because, again, that does cost money and we do have to make tough choices. The legislator has to make a tough choice just like you do in your own home to make the budget match. But I think there are some opportunities maybe if we look at some partial offices, open 1 or 2 days a week in some of these smaller communities to help with that. I know I've personally had a couple discussions about that just because some of the paperwork is very difficult and the ones that do have to drive, and I've talked to a few individuals that are willing to even open their offices to do that at no charge just to have somebody there locally. So, there are some options there, but we can't necessarily have 100% full-time opening, but maybe some part-time stuff.
Anything further right now?
I got a question.
A PBM, so this gal wants to know what a PBM is.
Okay, it's the middle individual that a lot of times it deals with. I don't even know the exact manager. Yeah, pharmacy manager. It has to do with more like prescriptions than anything else. You have your pharmacy. There's the PBM, which is the middle person. You have your insurance companies. They're the ones that get paid to basically pay the pharmacy, give the money to the insurance, and that type of thing. Basically, it's a middle individual.
So how does a person get a on somebody? Because we all know that at least the big departments in prisons are mentally ill and need medications, or strong medications. And when they're in prison anyway, they're provided with jail or something. So how do you get along with that company?
They work directly with the pharmacy and don't use the middle person to pass the paperwork. And they also took a fee, and sometimes the fee that the PBMs take is higher than the insurance company and the pharmacy get paid in general.
All right. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Holly. We'll move on to our next question.
All right, this question is for both candidates. So I've lived in this community for about 2.5 years, but there's been a term called the brain drain for rural areas. So I guess I'm looking for your guys' input on what do you do to attract businesses so that our brightest and smartest stay in the rural areas?
May I ask you why you came here?
I don't know much about the candidates, and I wanted to find out where they
No, I meant, why did you come to Oskaloosa?
Oh, I came here for a job.
You came for a job, okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure, I didn't know if you said you came here for a job, and I just wondered what, I was hoping I was on the right track that you came there. Okay. One of the things that we have to do is remember that we have some phenomenal communities. And people have to volunteer, people have to get involved. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that don't get involved anymore, people that aren't volunteering, people aren't getting, aren't seeing the whole picture. I kind of look at this mall and I think it's kind of an example of what some of our communities happening. I mean, it started out grand, it's kind of, I haven't been in here in a long time and it's gotten a lot sadder. And the thing is that we have to make sure that we promote our communities. Now, we're lucky in Appaloosa County that we have Lake Rathman, which gets a lot of people that come and visit. It's the same way to Albia. People will stop and they will visit. And that has encouraged a lot of unique, niche type of stores. Now those stores may not be they're not making multi-millions, but they're providing a great base, they're providing a strong foundation for our community. And I think we have to really promote those areas, those niche markets. Not everybody's going to work in a factory. In our particular area, and Holly I know knows this too, we have all kinds of openings for jobs. In Albia, there's all kinds of openings. In Centerville, there's all kinds of openings. The jobs are here. How are we going to entice them to come? I think you have to pay them more. I don't think you can pay them $7.25 and expect them to come. You have to pay them a living wage.
You know, I don't think there is not one specific thing that's going to help. It's a variety of. One is why our industry is not coming here. One of them also, I think, relates back to the broadband issue, which we really don't have in Mahaska County. We are very lucky. You know, we have a great opportunity to have that. But as you travel down, there's a lot of areas that do not have that opportunity. With that being one of the easiest ways for companies to track to the entire world, if that's not available, it's really hard to have someone come here when that's not available. We also have the housing crisis that is it is a big deal. I think with the rural economy and the rural housing crisis, even throughout the entire district, we have some of the lower income housing or lower level income housing, and we have some extreme, but there's that middle. If you talk to any realtor, they'll say that. There's nothing in that middle. It's really hard to find. We have unsewered communities, which is a concern. But one of the other things, and I think we are moving in the right direction, is, with Iowa for the marginal corporation tax, we were #1. The closest state to us was 9.9, and we were at 12. So I don't care how beautiful Iowa is. I love Iowa. I'm vested here. I'm not going anywhere. But it doesn't matter how beautiful it is, how safe it is, or how great our education is. If you can't afford to live here, you won't. We were #4 in individual taxes. Even if we pay the same rate, if you're going to be paying more in taxes and having to travel farther to do that stuff, you're still not going to recruit those talents or those businesses. I think the Ready Iowa is a great solution as well, because we're preparing these students to be able to go out into the workforce, which will also, when we have a great workforce, we can entice companies as well. So I think there's a great, with housing, we have the broadband situation that we need help with, our taxes were a situation, and our workforce. And I think we are working on all of those. But we need to entice them. We need to be a business-friendly community to invite them and want them to come. And are we friendly? Are we inviting? And are we preparing to accept them?
Iowa law states that if a candidate in a primary election does not receive at least 35% in a primary, a special nominating convention must be held to select a nominee. Sometimes the first place finisher does not receive the nomination. The most high profile instance of this, obviously, is probably 2014 in the 3rd Congressional District GOP primary with Brad Dunn and David Young, and a few other candidates. Do you support changing state law to remove the 35% threshold, or alternatively to run the special nominating convention provision with a runoff election provision? And we'll start with Holly on this one.
You know, this is not something I know a lot about with what's going on. I'm not going to proceed to tell it. We had it this year, though, with the Secretary of Ag, and they had to do it. So this is even a recent thing, but I haven't actually looked into anything about changing it. So I can't really give my opinion on that. I do think it's important how it did happen with the Secretary of Ag, is they did, you know, we sent our people that are supposed to represent us, and they continued and dwindled down from 5 to 4, 3, and they continued. But I've never thought about changing it, nor do I even know any solutions to that, so I can't give a full opinion on it.
If I remember right, it was the Secretary of Agriculture. That has to do with the party. The party did it. The same thing with David Young. It's the party does it. That is a situation that the parties are going to have to deal with, and to change that and to propose that, because you have a party function, the Republicans, the Democrats, and if they don't have that major amount of money, or their 35% votage, and then it goes to the nominating, that is all determined, that individual is determined by the party. So I think that has to be looked at. That's going to have to be worked through the party.
All right, so my next question is would you be willing to look into or have an opinion on being able to recall a politician? In Mahaska County, we had a situation that arose this year where a supervisor was no longer living in our county, and there's very little recourse other than that person resigned to be able to recall that politician, or for the populace to be able to say you no longer represent us. So would you look or be in favor of a way for that the citizens can recall you if you no longer do your job?
I feel we're hired to do our job, and we are elected to do our job and to represent the community. And if there is valid reason of, in this situation, they moved outside of the county, paperwork was filed that they weren't living in the county, I think that absolutely they are not following what they were, elected to do. Part of that, when you're elected to be a supervisor, you have to live in the county, you have to do that type of stuff. And when they're no longer following it, yeah, I do think that it absolutely a petition, or we the people, have the right to say, you're not following what you were elected to do so. And I think that's very important. He did end up resigning, and so it didn't have to come to something like that. But I think it's very important that the people get the representation that they elected the person to do.
We're going in uncharted territory here about that. I know everything about this. I have a couple of questions. So what where was the permanent address? Where was this person paying taxes?
This person moved from Oskaloosa to Norwalk, Iowa.
Okay, but was his permanent residency still considered where they were paying taxes? Was it still here in Oskaloosa?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, so they sold the house and...
Yeah, the person had a parsonage.
Okay. Okay, so that's a whole new thing in there. Well, what happens sometimes is that people move out of the district, but their permanent residency is still in that district. So I really can't speak to this person about whatever happened. Recalling, we don't really have recall in Iowa, and so that's when I would say your county board of supervisors evidently had to deal with that and dealt with it.
So would you be in favor of the people being able to have a mechanism in order to recall
But I don't
an
believe,
elected official?
maybe I'm totally wrong, but if I remember correctly, Iowa doesn't have recall rights, right?
Correct, so that is why I'm asking.
Oh, you want to know if we can put recall into the state?
But would you be in favor of such a law that allows the people to be able to recall an elected official that is no longer eligible?
Okay, so as an elected official, I think probably recall isn't a bad thing, and it probably could be easily fixed in the Iowa legislature. But we'd have to look at all the ramifications. We lots of times have these knee-jerk reactions that we need to do something right now. You need to look at what will happen down the road, what are all the possibilities, and then if it looks like it's a viable alternative, then I'd be for it.
Typically, the legislative session is started off with the annual battle for school funding, I guess we could call it. Recently, University of Iowa president criticized school funding as a reason why his university had dropped in a national ranking of universities. Do you believe our schools, public schools, lower schools, university colleges are adequately funded? If not, how would you propose providing more funding to our state schools? And we'll start with Susan on this one.
School funding is not an easy topic ever, but you're talking K through 12 and then the universities. And I think some of I've said this before and I'll say it again, we lots of times forget some of the benefits that our universities provide. They provide all kinds of research grants, they provide all kinds of research, and because of that, there are all kinds of jobs. I know a young lady, she works for a research scientist at Iowa State. There's a whole company that she works for, and it all has to do with hogs and hog confinement. And she has an excellent job. I think it's like maybe 150 people that work for that research area. And the problem is when we don't, if it's going to be a state university, then we need to help to fund it. If it's going to be a private college, then that's where it's going. But on a research-based area, we need to really promote those people. Because when a headhunter comes into town and says, I want you, not only does that individual is taken to another university, so goes all the research with that person. So it's not just taking that one person. So like this lady I know that's working there, she would lose her job, or she'd have to move to another university area to be able to get a job. So I think we have to watch that funding. I think what we always fail to talk about or look at is efficiency. Just because it's smaller doesn't mean it's always efficient. We have to look at efficiency. And maybe that's something that I know the legislature works on all the time, but I think we have to continue to look at that and find out where are the best places we can to make it more efficient.
When the University of Iowa president says that they need more funding, yet they have $1 billion endowment on hand, I have concerns with that. You have $1 billion, yet you need more of our tax money. Is that fair? I look at colleges, it's an investment. I'm investing in my future, just the same as a farmer invests in a farm to make themselves more profitable down the road. It's an investment. And when somebody says, I have $1 billion, but I need more from you, when's enough enough? That concerns me. We also have, federal, there's federal aid, there's all sorts of stuff that goes into that as well. But when you have a university that has $1 billion on hand in endowment, and they say that's not enough, that is very concerning. When it comes to, like Indian Hills and community colleges, I do have concerns. They don't have as much, they do not get as much funding as state funding and that type of stuff. But one of the things for the rural communities we need to remember is 83% of kids that go to a local community college stay in that community, which means that money gets reinvested in our community. That's how we're going to create the exponential growth. And a lot of times those degrees cost a lot more because you have to buy the CNC machines, you have to buy the lasers and that type of stuff. And when you go to some of the larger universities and you're not getting that, you're doing more classroom type stuff, they don't even have that extra cost, yet our local community colleges don't get the same funding. So that is a concern. I think it's very important those local community colleges also work with our local businesses. You want to get businesses to come? We have local community colleges that will work with them and help provide training for those. I think that's important. When it comes to lower level education and that type of stuff, efficiency is important. State of Iowa, we're number 1 in college or in high school graduation rate. 91% of our kids graduate. I think that's great, but we're number 26 in college readiness and 45th in efficiency. So we graduate more to be in the middle of the pack to have them ready for college to spend more than anybody else. That is a concern. There is not one particular thing that's going to fix it all. It's going to take a lot of different evaluations. I don't blame the teachers for this by any means, but I do think it's going to take parents, students, teachers, administration, and everyone to work on fixing that problem. It's going to start with our 4-year-old preschool. I love 4-year-old free preschool. However, I don't think one day should set a child's academic future. It's supposed to be the most important thing that we do for our kids is provide an education. Yet, when you're coached on or when you have individuals tell you, well, as long as your child walks between 9 months and 15 months, it's okay. They're supposed to talk between this month and this month. But yet, to get 4-year-old free preschool, September 15th, if your kid's born on the 14th, you have to go, whether they're ready or not. If they're born on the 16th, you can't. I don't think that's okay. I think we need to open that window up, allowing those kids to start kindergarten or pre-K when they're ready. A teacher should be able to say, you know what? Let's redshirt them. We redshirt and put all this stuff behind sports. We redshirt, to have the best chance to succeed at sports. But yet, we can't redshirt a kid to have the best chance to get through the system. They say ADHD has been on a rise since 4-year-old free preschool started.
I'm going to go ahead and refocus the question here. The question, and I'll refocus it for both candidates. The question was, do you believe, while the college question played a small portion of what I intended, I may not have asked in a clear manner. Do you believe our lower level schools such as Centerville, Albia, Oskaloosa have adequate funding? If not, how would you propose providing them with more funding?
I do think the busing system has helped that we no longer have to spend as much money on busing like we used to, because I think that was a very sad thing that in rural communities we were spending so much, upwards of $1,200 out of the $6,600 that the state would give us for funding. I'm glad that got changed. I feel that's absolutely going to help. So that was one step in the right direction. But with us being graduation but still being 46th in efficiency, I think we need to look at how the money is being spent before we continually throw money at them. It's been in the last 2 years, $765 million more have been given to education. We're number 4 in the states in the amount we've given more out of everybody else. So I think we need to look at where are we being inefficient at, I should say, versus just continually throwing more money.
Since Holly brought it up about the $1 billion endowment, some of that endowment can't be just spent for tuition. It can't be just spent on teacher salary. Those endowments are lots of times targeted at different areas. Okay, about local schools. She mentioned about the busing. The biggest impact that had around here about being getting additional monies for 1 year about busing had to do with Eddyville. So out of the last 9 years, public education, K through 12, not college, hasn't been fully funded. We all know that they've had an increase of 1%. That is if you do not have any declining enrollment. If you have declining enrollment, that 1% means that you have 0 new growth. So they're not getting any additional money. So I think they're being pretty efficient when everything else goes up in price, that you're maintaining there at where you're at. So I think there was one other thing. One of the things we need to be really proud of is our local schools. They have done a good job. Some of them are doing a better job. And I also think the instructional coaching has been very effective. And I hope that people really support public schools. Attend their events, see what's happening, go visit a classroom. Teachers would love to have you in the classroom and people to come and volunteer. We just don't see that very often.
And I agree. Our public school systems are fantastic. I think all schools are amazing. But if you look at some of the things also, we are just best places to teach at. 4 out of the 15 best places to teach at were in Iowa. There's 50 states to choose from in a million towns, but yet 4 out of the top 15 were in Iowa. I think that's a really good thing about how we treat our teachers, how we treat our students, and how we address education. It is important. But obviously we do. It's 4 out of 15. And we do want to talk about funding. $765 million more has went into education. If you look at all 50 states, we're number 4 in the amount of increase. So if you said it was a 1% increase, then everybody else might be going negative because we're at the top of the list. And you also need to look at, when you look at our state budget, 56% of your state taxes go to public education. So we keep hearing it's not fully funded. What is fully funded? Is there a dollar amount? Because I've never heard what fully funded is. But if you think about your state taxes, just 56 point, I can't remember the end of it, goes to public education. A little over 24% goes to health and human services. Ag, judicial, and all of the other things are left with this little 19%, and they actually have been cut over and over and over. So, again, I believe education is important. I believe we the people are going to be able to help fix this, stepping up, volunteering. I mean, anybody here from the community, anybody knows my husband? Did anybody see my husband dancing around on stage like an Oompa Loompa to raise money for kids' education? But it wasn't just for that. We don't really like that teachers have to provide all their own supplies. So $20,000 went to helping teachers with supplies. At the public school, they asked, it was Betsy Luck put out a flyer needing inner tubes and things to pay to take kids sledding. I believe that was extremely important. That's why I headed straight to the school to give money to that. I believe that we the people will help. We just need to know. When I fundraised for the pre-K classroom, it was like 8 days. People understood it and they care and they gave it. So I think that we need to look at it a little bit differently like that too, because we are giving money, we do care. When 4 out of 15 of the best places to teach are in Iowa, we do respect our teachers. We do care about them, and it is important to us.
Thank you, Holly. So we're going to move on to another hot topic in Iowa, and we're going to talk a little bit about mental health. And for mental health assistance in Iowa is suffering. A lot of times law enforcement is now acting not just as the primary contact when somebody is having a mental emergency, but then the jails are kind of turning into the secondary provider for that person. Sick individuals are ending up with criminal records because that's the only way that law enforcement can help get them help. Tell me your comprehensive plan, if you have one, of how to be able to address this issue in Iowa that is impacting many Iowans.
You know, mental health is a huge, it is a hot topic right now. And not just in adults, but it is in youth. We've had a lot of talk about education here. There's been a lot of talk about ACEs scores, the Adverse Childhood Experience scores. It is a huge event. It has to do with how many life-changing events they have had and the likelihood of them having problems. And I think we need to address it. That's why there has been a huge push in the last year. These 6 regional offices or areas that are going to be opening to help improve our mental health. I've also talked to one of the Mercy Medical director on the board of Mercy Medical in Des Moines. They also are going to step up and they're going to open more beds. I think 100 first, and they're going to try to add 60 more. From what he told me, it's going to take approximately 2,500 beds in the state of Iowa is what we need. Because the problem is also not just do we have a bed, but I guess you have to have particular beds for different things. And one of the hospitals in our district, they had somebody in their ER for 3 months. They finally found a different room to put them in. This is a huge issue that needs to be addressed. Yes, we need to fix it at the top. We also need to go down to the core and find out why. What is doing this? And so I think we need to continue with opening up the 6 different regional offices. I really think we want to encourage people like Mercy to step up and open those other facilities as well. And we need to continually collect this data so that we can find out why that has increased and go to the core and help improve it from the core, not just fix it up here.
One of the things that has happened is that our mental health facilities have closed. Used to have Mount Pleasant, used to have Cherokee, there's still some others. And then you have hospitals that used to deal with youth, closed, we've closed all kinds of places. One of the things that happened then is that there is no, it's very easy to say you don't have a problem if there's no place to send anybody. And what has happened is, as Holly said, in Centerville, there was a person that came to the emergency room was brought by the police, and that person spent 3 months in the emergency room because they could not find a bed or a location for that person because it was a youth person. There's only 2 places that deal with that, Independence and Cherokee right now. That's the only place that will do youth beds. You cannot, I've been going to the governing services meetings, and there's all these proposals they've got to spend down in these regions to 25% of their monies that they have. And as they're doing that, they are going to have to start new programs because they've got to spend this money. And as they start these new programs, these core programs of counseling, then what will happen is that they're really concerned, at these meetings anyway, they've been really concerned, is how do you continue to finance it? Because it's going to cost money down the road. Now, another example was in Centerville, they had it was called Oak Street Place, and they had a facility there that you could drop in, the police, instead of taking someone to the emergency room, could take them there. That ran for about $500,000 a year. Sounds kind of expensive, but I mean, it was staffed, there was people there the whole time. They closed it. So now they're opening one in Ottumwa. I heard they're opening one here in Oskaloosa, and they estimate they're going to cost between $1.5 million to $2 million to run those things. We have people that have problems. We need to have facilities and support for those individuals. And we've always had these issues. I don't think they're anything new. I think we have some issues that might be drug somewhat related. But how are we going to help these people, and do we just keep closing things to try and get by?
We're going to do one last call for any questions from the public. Do we have any questions out here?
So that person was in the ER for 3 months. How much did it cost? How much did it cost? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how much it might have cost?
I know that the ER room was costing somewhere around $1,000 a day.
Okay, so we have $90,000 to keep one person.
And that one person who eventually had to go and get help elsewhere.
So what can we do to have a sustainable system that doesn't have things happen like this? Because that's just one person, and I'll bet there's close to 100 in the 2 counties. Any ideas on how to fund something like that? Where are you going to get the money?
I think they are with the 6 different regional area offices opening, and they do have the funding for that. I do think that that is we are moving in the right direction. I don't think we can all of a sudden say we have so much, we can't fix all 2,500 beds at once, as that would be very detrimental to our entire budget, to a lot of different things. But I do think we are moving in the right direction. With the 6, the 1, they're also talking about a few other of the hospitals opening up in their facility. So again, it's not a perfect solution yet, but it is moving in the right direction because, yeah, that isn't a sustainable event at $90,000. And we
Where's
need
that
to.
money coming from? Federal, is it on increased taxes?
I do not exactly know where they changed the money and where they rotated it at from. For the 6, I can't tell you exactly what part they changed in the budget. I don't know, Ken, do you know exactly what they did with that?
No, it's just a new focus, a new way, more efficient way of providing services and
So you're taking money from Peter and saying, Paul, here, is that what you're doing? Or
No.
are you creating any new funds, I guess is what I'm getting
No,
at.
not, well, it's hard to create new funds without raising taxes. I mean, I could talk all night about this, but it's not my forum. I think I have to be careful.
Susan, you got anything to add to this?
I think what the worst thing was is that we had some mental health facilities, and then we closed them. And Now we are reallocating that money and starting over and trying to make it more efficient. But in the meantime, we've dropped a lot of people and haven't serviced those people, and that's the saddest part.
Anybody else in the audience? All right, then I have one last final question. So I'm going to apologize to Charlie for this one right now. But so in the state of Iowa, we have the legals. So whenever a local government, state government, whomever, needs to advertise in the local paper about those agendas, those meetings, would you be in favor of a new law that would get rid of that and maybe, let's say, have a state website where legals are submitted to so that everybody with a computer versus a newspaper subscription could find that? Because ultimately, that ends up being a government subsidy for the print news industry. So would you be... Correct. So would you be in favor of a law that would take care of that? Public dollars going to private business?
Well, I think I read and heard this from Mr. Rosenboom. And he had suggested that you go all online and look at all the public notices. I still like to look at them in the paper. I want to see them. I want to be able to read them. I don't want to have to print them out. And out of sight, out of mind. If you don't ever see them, you don't ever necessarily look at them. So I would like to maintain it as it is now. You could add to the website if somebody wants to do that, but you don't need to have, I'd like to maintain a printed version also.
You know, a lot of people are traveling to the online. I think it is a very important thing. It is definitely a transition that we should probably make and head towards that direction. I do not think that this time we can fully pull out of paper. We do need to find a solution for those individuals that are not capable or do not use smartphones, do not use computers to be able to get it. So is that they sign on for it to be mailed to them? Is there a place in the courthouse we're going to post it on paper? Is there several locations in the community it's going to be on paper? Because we need to think of that. But I do think for cost effectiveness, that we need to find some solutions for that budget. I don't know what the total budget is for the state of that. I know my company, we have really transitioned to more online just because the cost of everything. And it's a way to balance the budget a little bit more. And so again, we do need to think about that. I don't know what the total state budget is for that, but at this exact time, can we do it? No. You know, maybe 10 or 15 years down the road, it might be a possibility to only have online. But unless we have paper options somewhere for people to go and at least see it that don't have access, that would be a concern.
Yeah, because that's tens of thousands of dollars every year. Every small community is investing into that. So we're always looking how to save money, and I think that one's an easy fruit to pick. But that's my personal opinion. All right, I'm going to hand this over to Charlie, and we'll go ahead and get this closed out.
Well, once again, I would like to thank Penn Central Mall for allowing us to host a series of candidate forums that we held here this past week. For those of you who were not in attendance, we did have House District 79 on Monday. We had county supervisors yesterday, and of course we rounded it out with House District 80 tonight. So thank you to Penn Central Mall. Thank you to Holly and Susan for being here tonight. You know, what you two did this evening is never easy. It's not easy to be in the hot seat from journalists or the public, so thank you for taking time out here for the voters. Absentee voting does begin on October 8th and will run up until the day before the election. General election is set for November 6th of this year. We hope to see you all at the polls. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.